Hi, I'm Father Joel, and welcome to Pilgrim Priest. As the great Selcom outage stretches into almost a week, I'm grateful for other ways that I've been able to stay in touch with family and friends. So thank you for your patience in this situation. It's good to be with you today. God bless you. On Tuesday, the priests in the Diocese of Green Bay all gathered for a professional development day, and we had one of these consultants who had come from at least 100 miles away because that makes him an expert. You can't have a local person tell you, but if you bring someone in from out of town, well, they're an expert. And so he had these suitably confusing diagrams about your why, your purpose, and how it informs your values and your strategies and your systems, and then inspires your people, which were stuck next to the why because they're at the center too, but not exactly. Anyway, it was great fun, wonderful kind of corporate stuff. So as part of it, we had to sit and write out the why, not just a personal why, but a why for our parish. Like why does our parish community exist? What is the purpose? And so I wrote out a couple of paragraphs of why, and we sort of went around the circle and talked about making disciples or building a community of faith, etc. And when it got to me, I'd finally settled on one word: communion. It seemed to me that the why that we exist is we exist for communion. Now, first of all, people come to church in order to receive Holy Communion, right? This is the one place that you can receive Holy Communion. You can't get Holy Communion just watching the Mass on TV at home or attending a non-denominational church or out in the forest hunting for turkeys. So for one thing, that's what we have to offer, Holy Communion, right? But that's a symbol of that deeper reality that God's love calls us into communion, that God's love invites us to be one with Him. At our baptism, we're dipped into God's love for us. We are immersed in God's love. But just like if you threw a crusty sponge in the water, it wouldn't immediately become full of water. So in a sense, as we are dipped into God's love, we slowly allow that love to fill us, right? His love is meant to fill us so that then when we go out into the world, what oozes out of us is God's love and not all that other stuff. And so God has more work to do, so then He gives us the gift of Holy Communion, which is meant to transform us from the inside. So we are in God, and God is in us. And that really is the definition of communion, isn't it? Communion is to be in the other, and the other is in you. Think of when a child is born, your own child is born, and you hold your child for the first time, and you look and you realize part of me is in you, right? I gave you my genetic code, and you can sometimes see yourself or your spouse in the child, but then also you fall kind of instantly in love with this beautiful child, and you realize that, yeah, part of you is in me too, right? We have communion. This is what we are called to as disciples of Jesus Christ. In today's gospel reading, we hear Jesus telling us to love one another as He has loved us. And we might sometimes nod and smile and say, yep, got it, But I fear that we are often perhaps like foreign priests sometimes, who nod and smile and say, yep, But then you ask, did you get what I said? No. Okay, let's try this again, right? In a similar way, I think when we hear Jesus telling us that we should love one another as He has loved us, we're like, yep, I got it, Did you really get it? Because we think that Jesus is calling us to be nice, to be inclusive, to be accepting of all people, but that's really not what Jesus is calling us to. He's calling us to love one another as He has loved us. How has He loved us? Well, Jesus has put us first. He's laid down his life for us. He's given himself completely and totally to us, holding nothing back, even though it cost him everything. Jesus is inviting us we're, first of all, and we know this, we're called to love Jesus in the same way, right? To return to Jesus the love that he has offered to us. And so we're invited to make a total gift of ourselves back to Jesus, holding nothing back, putting him first, laying down our life for him. Jesus asks nothing more from us than what he has already given for us. And so the invitation is, first of all, to love him as he has loved us. But then the second call, then, is a call into communion with one another, that we should love our brothers and sisters with the same love with which Jesus has loved us. That's a lot to ask, isn't it? That's a lot to ask of us, which is why Jesus has to continually feed us with his love. Otherwise, we'll have nothing to offer to our brothers and sisters, or rather, we'll have nothing more than ourselves to offer to our brothers and sisters, and they certainly deserve better than that. Our brothers and sisters deserve the love of Jesus, because each of us is called, we're made in the image and likeness of God, and that means that we are called to love others, to be a visible sign of God's invisible love. And that's not something we do just from a distance. What we're really doing in reality is that God has created us all to be part of one big, beautiful family. And so when I love my brothers and sisters, I'm recognizing that their true dignity is found in the fact that God is our Father, that we have a common family. And this call is, in a special way, a call for Christians, right? For those who are members of the community. We see the early Christian apostles are going out as a community. Paul and Barnabas are ministering together. We see they were sent out from a community. The community of Christians blessed them and prayed for them and is actively supporting them in their work. As they go from place to place, converting Christians, those Christians then gather into a community, and each one is given a presbyter, an elder, a presbyter, but that's the word in the Bible that's used for a priest. Each one is given a priest. So essentially, they're making these little parishes as they go, these little communities of love. They're helping to build communion. And then when they return, it's the whole Christian community that rejoices, listens to their glory stories of how they've brought the good news, and rejoices with them. They're part of a communion of love. I think we can sometimes fall into that individualism that's so common in our culture, that you do you and I do me. And there is some sense in which I'm personally responsible to God for how I live my faith, that I have to do my part. But God never intended us to do it alone. And so it's important for us to not only be part of a healthy Christian community, but to help actively welcome others into that community, into that family of God. We know that communion will never be perfect here on earth, and it's something we always need to be investing in. And just like husbands and wives invest in their communion with each other, and they find that when they think they've put enough work in, there's time to do more work, right? It's something we always have to invest in. So we need to always be investing in our communion with Jesus, in how we can draw closer to him. But we also need to be investing in our communion with one another, with building each other up in faith, with learning to use my gifts and my charisms for the blessings of the community. Our second reading reminds us that communion is the goal of the kingdom of heaven, that in God's kingdom we are in sort of perfect communion with God and finally with each other as well. But that won't happen here, but earth should be a reflection of that invisible love of God. And so really, communion is our calling. Communion is our purpose. Communion is the why we do what we do. My condolences to all the Cellcom customers out there. If you didn't hear, we've been without cell service since Wednesday night. Yeah, we first figured it out Thursday when we went the whole day without a spam phone call. It was like, what is wrong? But yeah, what do you call a person with Cellcom? Nothing. You don't call them at all.